And we're recording. Excellent. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Allison Daigle, and I am joined this evening with my colleagues, Katie Cassavant and Penny Anderson. They're giving you a nice wave there, the autism specialist and outreach coordinator at the Autism Alliance. The Autism Alliance welcomes back our Summer Parent Series guest speaker, Kayleen Harvey. For those of you who don't know, Kayleen is a certified speech pathologist and has a bachelor's degree in French linguistics and received her master's in language speech pathology from SUNY Plattsburgh. She is the clinical director of the Boston Speech and OT Specialists. Kayleen is passionate and enthusiastic about play therapy and getting to know each individual child and family. Outside of working with children, Kayleen loves fostering animals and singing, and also traveling to Italy with her mom. She just came back, so we're happy to have her. Tonight's presentation is going to be creating your child's unique profile, the comfort zone activities. Kayleen will focus on comfort zone activities. These are activities in which children will engage deeply and tune out others. Learn how to delve down the rabbit hole and with your child and create joyful play opportunities to foster growth in foundational skills such as attention, regulation, and engagement. For parents who attend all three sessions, you will qualify for a raffle to receive a scholarship for 2 free private sessions with Kayleen to support your child. So I will be gathering your names tonight and putting those down for to keep that for the last session. And hopefully I see some familiar names. So hopefully some of you will receive those scholarships. This program is scheduled tonight from 6:30 to 7:30. And with that being said, I hope you enjoy this evening, and I'm turning it over to Kayleen.
Yay, thank you.
And I will pin you. So I got to
perfect. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and my multitude of tabs with you all.
Can I
see the slideshow.
Wait, I have to pin. Oh, I can't pin you yet. Oh, wait, can I? Oh, yes, I can. I got you. All right, very good.
Yay. Okay, perfect. Technology.
All
right. Thank you for that awesome introduction. I'm so happy to be back. Yeah, I just got back from Italy. So it's been an exciting summer so far. I'm Kayleen again. And we are doing the whole child, creating a complete profile to meet your child where they are. And this is part 2 of the series. So we are going to be talking about comfort zone activities. So a little bit about me for anyone who maybe wasn't here last time or just kind of forgot who I was. I am Kayleen. I have my master's as a speech language pathologist. So I'm first and foremost an SLP, but I'm also a certified play project consultant. And that's where my heart is. I do play therapy every day with children on the autism spectrum. I have some really cute pets. That's my dog and my cat. I had to throw them in there since they aren't here with me in my office. Their pictures are here with me for moral support. I graduated with my master's back in 2020 at the height of the pandemic and immediately moved to the island of St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean, where I did my clinical fellowship as the speech therapist for the St. Kitts Spectrum Services Center, which is a non-for-profit autism clinic in the Caribbean. And then I moved back up to Florida to work with Dr. Cheryl Rosen, who is an autism specialist and master trainer for the Play Project. And from there, I moved up here to my homeland of the Northeast, where I was able to become the director of this clinic and open this new clinic to spread my joy of play therapy and all that up here. So I've been really excited. Actually, today, I realized as I was practicing this presentation, today is the 1-year anniversary of Boston Speech and OT Specialist.
Oh, congratulations.
So we've been here for 1 year. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, that's so great.
It's so crazy. So a whole year has gone by. We've done a lot of awesome stuff. The clinic is growing. We have this awesome partnership with you guys for this scholarship and these presentations. So I'm really, really pleased with how this past year's gone. I'm so excited to be here tonight to really be spreading the joy of 1 year in Boston. So we are Boston Speech and OT Specialists located in Wellesley, Massachusetts, inside the We Rock the Spectrum gym. If you guys are ever in the area, you can come for services. And also, it's just an open play sensory gym for kids of all abilities to come use. So it's a really awesome space. But let's get into why we're all here today to talk about comfort zones. Or let me do a quick recap of what we did last month for anyone, again, who might not have been here. We talked about FDLs. So this play project therapy and developmental therapy, we look at children at their current level of functioning. So it's not based so much on neurotypical norms, as we know that children with autism develop skills at different rates in a different order, or they may not develop the same skills at all. So developmental approaches allow us to meet them exactly where they're at by not playing too high, where the kid might give up or tune us out, and not playing too low to the point where they may get bored or ignore us. So the FDLs were great for understanding your child's current skills and how to play with them at the right level. And now today we'll be moving on to another aspect of your child's individual profile known as comfort zones. So what are comfort zones? What are we even talking about? A comfort zone activity is what your child does basically when you let them do whatever they want. If you say, I'm busy with laundry or dishes or watching my show, what do they gravitate to when not playing with a partner? These could be preferred toys or activities, often done alone or while seemingly in their own world. Yep. So Lucinda said they might sit and stim. And I want to say too, before we get too far into this, I want this to be really interactive as well. So if you have it, examples of specifically what your child does, their comfort zone activities, if you want to ask any questions, I am going to go over techniques of how to engage the child when they're in their comfort zones. But please, Lucinda, great job sharing and tell me exactly what you're seeing. And if you have any questions, feel free to unmute, type it in the chat. I want this to be pretty interactive. So thanks for sharing. So they may sit and stim, they may engage with a certain toy, a certain electronic, a certain activity that they really do like doing. And we kind of call this the rabbit hole. It's the metaphor for when they're really engaged in these tasks, it can cause self-isolation because these can be really perseverative, repetitive, restrictive, and stereotypical behaviors that are sometimes characteristically exhibited by children with autism. They seem to kind of be tuning us out, not always willing to engage when they're doing these activities, may not answer to their name being called. We often hear that children with autism prefer playing alone or may become upset if you mess with their activity. So that will often happen when they're in their comfort zone. And this is a specific thing they engage in to keep order and sameness in their day. It helps a lot with emotional regulation. So imagine you're a kid and you've been at school all day and there's been someone telling you where to go and what to do and what to play and how to do it the right way. And obviously this is a valuable experience for a lot of kids. It's a variety. It helps with flexible thinking. But for children with autism, it can be really dysregulating. So to regain some sense of control over their environment and to recharge their battery, they may drift into these comfort zones. So these behaviors are typically an attempt to keep the world the same or for them to self-regulate. It's something they can do every day that happens the same way, that feels good to their body. And it's typically repetitive. It might be something they do over and over again. They may appear to be in their own world and not really with us. And they may not like respond when their name is called, or they may do it over and over. So those are kind of examples of comfort zones. So Lucinda said what her child does, or the child she knows, is to sit and stim. This is a way to regulate. Okay, so pacing back and forth, constantly coming back to touch and sometimes hit people, and starting to explore visually some toys. So
up little matchbox cars.
Yeah, like matchbox cars. Yes, that's a popular one. Manipulative things, they can hold things, they can line up. So we're going to get really into the sensory profile next week, but the way we look at behaviors is all behavior is a communication. They're not doing something just because, they're doing something to seek out a feeling or regulation. So if the child is pacing back and forth, they might be seeking out that proprioceptive input of walking and stopping, hitting. They're seeking out deep pressure input to their body. So when I see kids doing sensory seeking, comfort zone activities, my mind automatically starts going, well, how can I join them this? How can I give them the same sensation in a more functional way? So if they're coming over to hit you, they want deep pressure on their hands, right? So I would take their hands and squeeze, or provide that deep pressure in a different way and model language surrounding it as well. So these are great examples. Scripting episodes of shows, or needing to finish the script before moving on. That's another one. Scripts can be really great for language development. Those kids can have those big chunks of language that we can use. They can also become really perseverative on those and have difficulty breaking away from them. So repeating what the teacher says, yep, wanting to maybe be in charge, talk like a teacher, a camp counselor, a parent, exactly, to trying to take these things that they're doing that feel good, that give them a sense of organization and purpose, and making it functional, instead of just saying like, stop, don't do that. I don't, obviously hitting, we can say, don't hit me. You can ask for a squeeze, or you can ask for something else instead. SIB type activities, not specifically for injury, with hitting, hand kicking. Yeah. So it sounds a lot, Lucinda, like the child you're talking about has is really seeking out a lot of input, a lot of deep pressure input. And I will really recommend that you come later this month to the sensory talk under developed nervous system. Yeah. So a very different sensory profile than what we would typically see. The nervous system may develop differently, and they're just seeking out different input than what we would typically see. They need more than the average kid. So finding ways to meet input. And when those comfort zones are sensory based and they are seeking out a lot of that input, it can be really hard because it may seem like they're hurting themselves or they're hurting us. And we have to find ways to give them that input while also setting boundaries around behavior and also making sure they're not hurting themselves or others. So it can be a tricky line. So definitely comfort zones that are more physical and be a little more challenging. And again, definitely come later this month to the sensory one, because I talk a lot about that. So yeah, so I asked for examples. That was a lot of really great examples. Thank you guys so much for typing stuff in and participating. I love to have it be more functional. I talk about the functionality of language all the time as a play-based therapist, and the functionality of presentations makes sense too, because it makes more sense if you're coming here to learn that it be about your child specifically. Constant ABC and counting. I see this a lot. Kids who really like ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, rainbow order colors. Yep, different child. So finding ways to take this interest, that's a very narrow worldview, and we're going to get into it later. This comfort zone is kind of like a thin worldview that they see, and it's this one thing they like, and finding ways to join them in it first, build that relationship, and then expand out and expand their worldview little by little. Just take their theme, allow the child to take the lead and pick the thing they like, and then vary on it a little bit. Can I sing the ABCs a little bit out of order? Can I rearrange the letters? Can I do it to a different tune? Can we count by 2s this time, 10s this time? Can we take that thing they like, that's interesting to them, that's motivating to them, and vary it to increase flexibility of thought, to decrease that rigidity, and then put language surrounding it as well. These are really great examples. All right. And I want us to know that everybody has these, right? I have my comfort zone activities that I like, things that you get deeply engaged in, that you have trouble pulling out of, things that make you feel frustrated when people bother you during this time or this activity. Yeah, you twirl your hair and read. I listen to podcasts, and if someone tries to talk to me when like my podcast is playing, I'm like, stop right now. Like, can't you see I'm doing something? Like, get really frustrated. Yeah, and we all have sensory stims too. I have a great shirt that says right across it in big letters, everybody stims, that I like to wear a lot, because everybody does. Like, we all have ways that we regulate and organize. We twirl our hairs. I chew my nails and chew on pencils and shake my legs, click your pens, right? Chew gum. We all find some way to regulate and organize in this world. And so what we're trying to teach our kids on the spectrum is that there are ways to regulate that sensory system. Rocking your office chair, right? I'm like squeaking side to side. And there are ways to do it socially, so they don't have to meet those needs alone. We can join them in those activities and meet those needs with them. And the difference is our experience is obviously different than theirs. We understand that socially we have to pull out of these zones. We've been kind of grown up in a society where you know that when someone calls your name, you kind of have to put down what you're doing and say yes, or if someone knocks on your door, you have to stop what you're doing and answer it. The comfort zone, anything like the psychological concept of flow. I am not familiar with that concept. Monty and Nancy, hi. If you want to tell me what that is, I could let you know if they're similar. Okay, we'll talk later. Perfect. So we want to help the child with ASD experience more social interaction to build an intrinsic motivation for communication and then eventually be able to regulate without being derailed by comfort zone activities. We can help them manage emotions and express themselves instead of becoming dysregulated and potentially melting down, particularly when transitioning away from these activities, which can be really tough. So you guys gave a bunch of great examples. I'm going to give some more that I saw and thought of. Lining up toys is a really common one, taking things and putting them in a line in number order, in color order, in size order, in random order. I see a lot of visual self-stimming on wheels, lines, objects, twirling wheels in front of their eyes. Watching TV, having preferred shows, removing clothes. That's a tough one. Yeah. Again, is it sensory? Is it the touch of the tactile of the clothes is too much? I always like to think, thank you. I always like to think of what's underlying any given behavior. Especially these comfort zones, like what feels so good about it that they want to perseverate on it and do it repeatedly and be so engaged in that they're willing to tune out other people in the social aspect. Being stuck on the same topics. If this kid is really into planets, trains, dinosaurs, specified interests. While specified interests alone isn't a comfort zone when they're doing it in a non-social way, like not sharing information about it, maybe just perseverating on a toy dinosaur, reading books about their preferred topic without engaging with others about it, that's when we consider it more of a comfort zone. So
how about flapping hands?
Flapping hands is definitely self-stimulation. So sometimes it's hard to distinguish between self-stimulation and comfort zone, and often they're kind of the same thing. Like this is something they're doing to regulate and feel good. It's regulating to their sensory system, and they're doing it so much and perseverating on it so much because it feels so good that they're tuning out social interaction in favor of this activity. And so sometimes self-stimulation can become a comfort zone. So if they're flapping their hands and they're seeking out that sensory to the point where now I don't even want to engage with other people because I can give myself everything I need to feel good, then it's a comfort zone. We need to find ways to join them in that, change it up, turn that somehow into an engaging social activity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see the difference.
Awesome. And like I said, later this month, we'll talk about sensory motor profiles, but we will often see sensory seeking behaviors as comfort zone activities. So if a child prefers watching wheels or balls that spin, we can see that they're seeking out maybe visual sensory input. If they're flapping, they're seeking out that proprioceptive or tactile input. So then I start to think, how else can I meet that need? What can I do with them that's going to provide this same feeling? So we're going to move into a little bit of the psychology part of things. This is a figure by Lev Vygotsky, who's a foundational figure in developmental psychology, and he created this framework. So you'll see in the middle, here's what we're talking about today. We've got our comfort zones, and this is the thing your child can do independently. It's easy for them, it feels good, and there's not necessarily any social component to it because they can do it without your help. And then way out here on the outside ring, we see the zone of potential development, which is kind of the opposite. This is things that the child cannot do yet. It's out of reach, even with help. This is like driving a car for a 5-year-old. It's kind of out of reach. So to bridge the gap between those two things, this is kind of where we try to do most of our play, and most of our work is within this zone of proximal development. And skills within this zone are things that the child can do with help. So I'm going to give an example from a session I just had today. I had a little girl on a slide, one of those little baby slides, super small, and she really liked going down it. So she got to the bottom, and then I'd pick her up and put her back on the top. And so that was her comfort zone, just going down it. And there wasn't much work. She would crawl back up to the top herself. So she could do it herself. She would go down the slide, crawl back up the slide, and go down it herself. Totally fine doing it by herself. Nothing really social to it. So I was like, great, let me join her in this. So first thing I do when I'm developing a relationship and meeting the child where they're at is I first join them in the comfort zone. I go down the rabbit hole. I get right here in this middle circle. And so I sat there with her, and as she climbed up and went down the slide, I started doing 1, 2, 3, wee, as she went down. And then I'd catch her at the bottom and tickle her. And then instead of her crawling back up the slide, I started to put her up. And so now we have this social interaction. She was expectantly waiting for me, reaching out, waiting for the tickles at the bottom, and then letting me put her back up. So now this was something she could do with help, was have this interaction and get back up the slide. And then but the caregiver was like, well, shouldn't she go up the stairs of the slide? So that's kind of zone of potential development for a kid to motor plan a sequence that complex of, I'm going to go down the slide, stand up, walk around, go up the 3 steps, sit down, stop and wait. That's a lot of steps. That's tough. That was like zone of potential development for her. But by meeting her in her comfort zone first, letting her do the slide her way, and then picking her up and having her allow me to help her, then the next time she came down, I took her by the hand and we walked around and I helped her up the steps. And we did that a few times. And then the next time she came down, I just kind of waited, and she independently walked around to the steps, walked up them, and went down the slide from the top of the steps. So she developed a new skill of following a multi-step motor sequence that was originally pretty far out of her reach. So it was really difficult for her. And by just doing it a few times and by meeting her where she was at, modeling skills up into this zone of proximal development, we were able to develop a brand new skill within 10 minutes of this activity. So when we model without expectation, and when we meet the child where they're at and accept them where they're at, we can build these skills. It's kind of a gentle move out. If she went down the slide and I said, good job, stand up, walk around and go up the stairs, I gave her something in her zone of potential development without modeling, without helping, she wouldn't have been able to do it. She would have said, that's way too hard, and walked away. But by taking the steps up and going developmentally and meeting her where she's at, we were able to develop a new skill, and she was able to have some really great back and forth interactions with me. And we built on our relationship, our, client relationship. So that was really awesome. And I was like, I'm going to talk about this later today, because that was kind of like the perfect way for it to go. It happened really fast and she picked up on it really quick, but it perfectly modeled this kind of framework. So if the activity is motivating and the child needs help to do it, then they're going to have social interactions while completing it, right? So if we find something they really like doing, their comfort zone, and then we expand on it and they're motivated by it, then we can move out and have them push out into that zone of potential development. So Taylor said she's currently trying to join a child in their comfort zone with Legos. And so I've seen this for kids who really like building, following directions, blocks, Legos, and they can get kind of rigid around this, right? They want to do it their way and they want to be the one to do it. Joining them can be a little tougher. So I'm gonna, when I get into rabbit hole techniques a little later, I think this is one of my examples. So hold on to that thought, and I will definitely bring up that Lego example. You're welcome. All right, so, and the other thing is we can't push too far out immediately. So that's kind of what I said with the slide. If I just told her, walk around, go up the stairs and go down, she would have shut me out. It's too hard. So it's kind of a delicate balance of meeting the child in their comfort zone, pushing out a little bit, building that relationship, building that trust, letting them take the lead, and then just trying to push out to those skills little by little in manageable chunks. So we need to keep it fun, motivating, and engaging. And we also need to be mindful of the child's cues throughout the process as we engage and introduce more skills, which can be a little difficult based on level of if they're able to verbally present you with cues, or if it's facial expressions, body language. I'm going to talk more about cues in a little while, but it's definitely something to be mindful of. And we're also not pulling them from their comfort zone. I never want to say like, oh, you can't do that anymore, we're moving to something else. My first step when I see a child engaging in a comfort zone activity is to meet them there, to do it with them, or to sit by them while they do it. And then, try to join them, have them tolerate my presence, then have them tolerate me touching it. It's a slow move in with them. I say, I'm not pulling them out of the rabbit hole. I'm going right down into it with you. And then we're kind of climbing out together. And then we work out together. Yeah. So the next slide is here. There it is. Just kind of a pretty little picture one. I just like this. It's a really beautiful term from biology, actually, I think, that Dr. Rick, the creator of Play Project, brought up in one of his talks, and it kind of really stuck with me, and it's something I think about a lot during my sessions. And it is just the tendency, if I understand it correctly, sorry if there are any scientists here that if I have it wrong, but it's the tendency of plants to grow towards the sun. So, you have a flower in the window and it starts to grow more and more towards the window. If it works for biology science, I like to think it works for people, and like the neural growth of our kids. If you're able to catch a child's attention and to be a positive, joyful play partner, they're going to gravitate towards you. They're going to perform better, and they're going to learn faster because they're engaged and motivated by someone who's meeting them at their level, and they're going to grow towards you. So I always try to think of my kids as little flowers, and I'm trying to be the sun so that they want to grow as best as possible with me. All right, so I know what you're thinking. We've talked a lot about play. You're a speech therapist, it can't possibly just be playing all the time. Like, they have to learn skills and they have to learn speech because they're coming to you for speech most of the time. And I get that. But when we are taking a true developmental approach and truly accepting the child for their current level of functioning, we are able to do the work at the right level and make the most meaningful progress. So, especially with kids, I work with a lot of younger kids, play is the work. It may just look like we're playing, but to their brains, that's how kids develop problem-solving skills. It's how they learn how to take turns and share and understand what other people's facial expressions mean and understand how other people are thinking and feeling. So, what are the best way that we can honor the child's preferences and interests while also working towards building our relationship and getting more interaction without upsetting them, without pushing too far? So these are kind of the 4 methods and principles that I tell to my caregivers who come into my sessions with me. I say, throw away your agenda. They come in, they say, I want my kid to do A, B, C, and D, and I want them to practice this and know their sight words and spell and all that stuff. And that's awesome. And hopefully eventually they will. But when they come into my sessions, we kind of throw away our agenda. I am in a pretty awesome gym space, like I mentioned, and then there's zip lines and a trampoline and a rock wall. And I bring the kid into the gym and I say, go play, do what you want to do. And I let the child take the lead. So when we let the child take the lead, then we are able to engage in activities that are meaningful and motivating to them. We're able to provide language around those. And we know that their brain is going to be firing because they're actually interested in moving around. And I get to see what they like and what they don't like. So if the child's taking the lead and I just kind of sit back and slow my pace of play and put my agenda aside and watch, what are they playing with? What are they getting from that? What does that feel like? If a child is stimming off, and imitate and do the same thing and say, what does that feel like in my body? What are they getting from this? How can I imitate that in an activity that we can do together? When we watch for the child's attention, we learn about their intention. So it sometimes feels weird, and it's hard for me as a speech therapist who loves to talk and teach to sometimes just sit back quietly and let the child do their thing. But I learn so much from that happening. And I know sometimes it's hard for parents too, and they come in sessions and I'm like, let's just wait and see what they do. And then we are going for circles of communication, which I'm going to have another slide about in a little bit. But first, let's talk about those cues and intentionality that I mentioned earlier. So cues are the critical unit of observation. When I am doing my sessions, I am watching the child really closely. And again, I'll probably never know them as well as their parents or caregivers know them. And that's why I really like this approach where I get to do some training and caregivers stay in the sessions. But these are the behaviors of the child that will tell you what they want to do. They may be verbal, they may be nonverbal, but the cue will tell you whether the child is enjoying the interaction, tolerating the interaction, or straight up not enjoying the interaction at all. And by being sensitive and attentive to cues, you can discover the child's intent. So I said this earlier, I'll say it again. Watching their attention leads to understanding their intention. Cues will guide your interaction and circles of communication to keep you cued in and keep you in the dance of the relationship. If they're showing that they're not interested in something, I keep saying, no, come play this. Come on, come do this. They're not going to want to play with me. They're not going to want to listen to me. But if I follow them and do what they like and join them in it, they're going to think I'm awesome, hopefully. So the cues that kids give can be obvious or very subtle, and they can be positive or they can be negative. So some obvious cues that we might see from a child when I'm trying to join them in their comfort zone is they might frown. I might try to come in, they frown, they move their body away from me. It's pretty obvious. They didn't like that. It was too much. I'm not going to do that. That's not going to be my approach anymore. Message received. I may sit down to try to join them in their comfort zone activity, and they'll shift, they'll look at me, they'll smile at me. Awesome, big thumbs up. I did something right. They're cool with it. We're going to keep going. Or cues can be really subtle. The child might stiffen ever so slightly. They might permit you. They might pause a little bit to let you in. We have to be really cued into these things because they're not always obvious, and every kid looks a little different. So just paying attention to your child and how they're reacting to your approaches and your bids for communication. And then we're going to get into circles of communication. So this is what I talked about earlier as well. It's the basic unit of interaction and engagement, the responsiveness versus the span of disengagement. I want lots of circles in my sessions. So a circle is basically someone initiates and someone responds. We open one, we close one. That's a circle. And the main task of almost every interaction I have is to increase the number and the quality of circles. I want more back and forth. I want us serving and returning, having continuous flows of communication, and I want the quality to increase. So a circle might first just be like, I glance at the child, they glance back at me. I give a thumbs up, they smile. And then eventually it will turn to, they take me by the hand and lead me somewhere. They're back and forth. We're using words and language in our circles. So some examples might be, I call the child's name, I open, I initiate, and they look at me. They close it. We just had a circle. Let's go for more. Or a more complex one is if we're doing bubbles, I'll dip the wand in the bubbles and then I'll just kind of look at them expectantly. So I'm opening with a gesture, a facial expression, and then they point, so they close it. And then they say blow, boom, close kind of a second one, 1.5. And circle strategies are going to vary by FDL. So again, we're meeting the kid where they're at. If this is a level 1 kid, if I can even get them to shift attention to me and we can share attention on something, we're getting circles that way. Awesome. If this is a level 6 kid and we're doing back and forth pretend play and he's a firefighter and I'm a cat stuck in a tree and we are having a whole conversation about how he's going to help me, then that's the level our circles are going to be at. But we want to have as many back and forths as possible, and we want them to be really good quality connected circles. So then we have all the background on cues and intentionality and circles. We can get more into some of the comfort zone techniques. So we use rabbit hole techniques because I mentioned earlier, we sometimes say they're going down the rabbit hole and they're engaged in these activities. So we use these rabbit hole techniques to join them. Instead of pulling them away from what's comfortable and regulating, we try to encourage relationships and interaction within those activities. So instead of saying, no, don't do that, come into my world, we say, okay, here I come into your world. Let's do this together. And let's start with the very foundation of language, which is a relationship. Can we relate to each other? Can we be near each other? So these are the 6 I am going to talk about tonight. And all of you that messaged asking questions about my child does this or this child does that, here are some techniques to try when they're engaged in their comfort zone activities. Feel free to pop in and say, this would work, this wouldn't work. I've tried this. I would never try that. Let me know. So the first one, and we're kind of going to start simple and then move up. So the first one is as simple as it gets. This rabbit hole technique is just being with. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Can you physically be near the child while they're doing this thing? Will they even tolerate you in their space? Will they tolerate you near this preferred item or while they're doing this activity? This is if the child is pretty deeply engaged and they're not responding when you call their name, they're not responding to your bids for communication. Can you at least physically be near them? And I know it's hard because sometimes it's like, oh, well, they're entertaining themselves and they're staying busy and I have things to do around the house. But sometimes this is the first step to engage them in these activities. Yeah, because they ignore you. So this might be step one. If they're ignoring you, it might be, oh, easy peasy, he's ignoring me. I gotta go do things. Can I just sit with him or her or them while they're doing this thing? Can I just physically be near them? Can I be in the same room? That might be the way to start. And then can I sit on the ground and be near on their level? Can I just sit quietly near them and wait to see if they re-engage with me in any way? That's step one. That's the first thing you can do if they can tolerate that. Again, I believe you said earlier, if there was like some hitting or sensory seeking stuff, maybe sitting quietly near them might not be an option, but then we'll get into other things of ways you can engage them, hopefully in their sensory system. But step one, being with, can be physically near the child. The second rabbit hole technique is narrating. So we can label. This is a good one for SLPs too, because it's also integrating a lot of language, talking about what the child cares about. So providing them with language to hopefully communicate about the thing they're passionate about. I'll just label and provide a running commentary. Again, paying attention to their intention. I'm not directing them. I'm just talking about what they're doing. You're kind of going to feel like a sportscaster. You might feel a little silly doing this because there's not super much interaction, but they're going to hear you. So let's say your child is coloring. You may narrate saying, you're coloring the hat red. I didn't tell him, color the hat red, now color this blue. I'm just saying, that's what you did. I'm narrating, I'm giving you language about the things that you're doing. So Taylor, the kid you mentioned about their comfort zone is Legos. Instead of even trying to touch it, if that's out of the question, they're rigid about it. I'd say, oh, we're putting the blue block on. Okay, the next one is gonna be white. Wow, I heard it click on. I can see this is turning into whatever set they're building, but just making comments about what they're doing. Even if they're not engaging you back with those comments, you're providing meaningful functional language to the activity and they're tolerating you being there in their space and talking to them about it. The next technique is to help them do better. So once they're tolerating you in their space and tolerating you talking about it, now can you join in a little bit to what they're doing? Can you play along with them, even if it's not what you'd consider typical play? So I'll have a lot of parents come in and the kid will pull out cars and they'll just start lining the cars up and the parents will be, no, that's not what cars do. Cars drive. Come on, vroom, 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 drive around. Again, that's kind of our agenda. That's our idea of what cars do. But if lining cars up is fun to them, that's play too. So we're going to try to join the play without expectations, without ascribing our own meaning or functionality to it. Just help them do it a little better. So if the child's lining up cars, instead of saying, no, cars don't line up, they drive, I'd say, sure, let's line them up. And then I'd hand him the next car. So instead of him just reaching in the bucket, putting a car, reach in the bucket, put a car, he's doing it by himself, right? He's in his comfort zone. Let's move to a zone of proximal development. What can he do with me? So I say, all right, here's a white one. All right, here's a yellow one. All right, here's a blue one. Now he's turning, shifting to me, engaging with me to get the next toy. So he's still getting the thing he wanted. He's still lining up the cars, but it's become a social activity and not an isolating activity because we're doing it together. See if he'll let you add some as well. Now, instead of handing it to him, we're like, all right, you put this one, now I put one. Then you put this one, now I put one. Now we're taking turns. And then let me add as well. So this is helping them do better. They're doing something. They're engaged in this comfort zone activity. And I'm not saying, no, you can't do it. I'm saying, I just want to do it with you. Let's do it together. And that's kind of doing it better. All right, the next one is theme and variation. So this is doing something different with the same activity. This is when the kid's really tolerating us near them, touching it. We have a good foundational relationship going. Now can I start to push outside their comfort zone a little? We're in it. Let's start to move out. So you let the child take the lead. They choose the activity, and then you're going to vary it slightly. So I have, let's say you're working with a child who loves to open and close doors. Doors are awesome. Open, close. It makes a cool click sound. It's visually stimulating. So instead of saying, nope, we don't play with doors, unless it's a safety thing and that's a rule in your house, then nope, we don't play with doors. But if you're cool with it, and I'm cool with it in my office, I joined them. So I'll open and close the door with them a few times. All right, this is fun. Now, here comes the variation. We have the theme. The door is the theme. The kid chose it. I didn't say we're playing with the door. He said we're playing with the door. I'm joining him in it. Now I'm going to vary on that theme a little bit. How can I change it up? So instead of just open, close, can we sing a song to the beat of the door opening and closing? As it opens and closes, can we say, this is the way we close the door, open the door, close the door? Can we do peekaboo with it? So now he closes it and I pop out peekaboo. Can we do my turn, your turn? You close it, now I get to close it. Can I make a pretend play scenario out of it and jiggle the handle and pretend that we're stuck in there? So all this from a door, which everyone else would say, well, that's not functional. He's just opening and closing a door. Make it functional. Join him in the thing that's motivating to him. Make it social, and then vary on that theme and add more ideas. Where the whole point of this is we're broadening their worldview, right? So they have this one thing. I like to open and close the door. Now it's I like to sing songs. I like to do peekaboo. I like to take turns. I like pretend play. We've expanded into a skill set across multiple functional developmental levels from one activity. Is that the last one? Did I miss one? Oh, I knew I missed one. Oh, I missed two. Okay. I skipped one. Surprise. All right. So then we're going to talk about imitation and parallel play. So this is kind of before the theme and variation. So we're going to do something similar to what your child is doing, but slightly different, just to see if they show interest in your way or try to imitate it. So I'm going to play physically near them without actually touching the activity. So again, let's go to the lining up cars example. If the child's lining up cars, can I start a line next to them? Can I make mine a little bit different, just facing the opposite direction? Can my cars be in rainbow order? So this is kind of like theme and variation, but without actually touching their thing. It's the step before. I want them to see there's a different way to play, but I'm not messing up your way. I'm just kind of doing it next to you. Do you think this is cool? Are you cool with this? Do you want to try it my way? Now they've seen an idea of a different way to play, and it wasn't forced upon them. I didn't say you have to do it this way. I'm just saying you're doing it that way. I'm doing it this way. Look, my way is fun too. Let's try it. So Taylor said, I had a child who wanted to jump on the trampoline and just jump, and they could jump all day. So instead of just jumping, and that can get pretty tiring, we added songs to it, or pretend we're sleeping. Or so yeah, the trampoline's great. And there are lots of kids I know too, sensory seekers, who could jump all day on the trampoline. Can you turn it into 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed? Can it be Ring Around the Rosie? Can it be that popcorn game where you curl up in a ball and they jump around and try to pop you open? There's so many ways to vary these themes that the kids present with. Other people are like, well, this isn't functional play. Let's not do that. Say, yeah, anything they're playing is functional play. Let's add some meaning to it. Well, that's a great example. Take a job. Variation. And then this is the last one we're going to talk about today. Kind of a sneak peek for next week too, is changing the sensory mode. So can we engage the child's attention with a highly motivating activity? So this is where we've been in the comfort zone with them. We're pulling out a little bit. Can we change it up even more? So to do this, we're going to have to know their sensory profile to know what they like. So definitely come in a few weeks to learn about sensory profiles. So the child's really in their own world, having trouble engaging. I will introduce a preferred activity. So if they're a sensory seeker and they're sitting there spinning wheels, and we've been spinning wheels and it's been kind of tough, I might change up the sensory mode. So this is still visual, but it's a different type of visual. Let me blow you some bubbles. Or if they're doing the hitting and we can't make that functional, can I squish you under a bean bag? Can we do tight hugs? Can we do a song and squeezes and rocking? How can we change up to really integrate that sensory mode? So as children develop skills and they move through the functional developmental levels, they are less likely to have their regulation derailed by comfort zone activities. It's actually most often in FDL1 that they're easily derailed by comfort zone activities, but it can still happen all the way up because we all need time for like sensory breaks and to organize the world and to just kind of tune everything out. So the goal of FDL1 is to have the child feeling calm, alert, and ready for the possibility of engagement. And if they are resistant to engagement with others when in comfort zone activities, that's when we are going to use these rabbit hole techniques to join them in a slow and meaningful way. And then again, as we work across the profile and as we meet their sensory needs and as we're playing at the right level and we're not frustrating them and we're meeting them within these comfort zone activities, we're hopefully just going to see them using them less often because they're going to have a sense of regulation that's carrying across the day through this relationship. And they're going to have more, language skills developing, whether gestural, whether verbal, whether with an AAC device. And we're just wanting to teach them co-regulation skills. And then I'm here in it with you, that I'm going to join you in this, and that it's not going to be taken away either. Because one thing I've had is kids who have come to me who have had other forms of therapy where they were just kind of told to like stop that sensory thing, and that only makes them seek it out more. If you're told, you can't do this thing that feels good to you, that makes me want to do it more, right? So then I would have a kid who really liked to play in the sink, and they said, mom was like, no, don't play in the sink. And I was like, oh, like, do you not want him getting wet? And she was like, oh, no, I'm okay with it. But his other therapist said not to let him do it because it's not functional. And I was like, are you okay with me during our session letting him play in the sink? Because I think it would be really sensory. He's seeking it out. He was really persistent on going to the bathroom, being in the sink. And she was like, okay, yeah, let's try it. So he went to the sink and he played in the sink for like 15 minutes. Kid was in the sink. Like, we were there, we were splashing, we were singing songs, got a little wet. It's water, we'll be fine. But then on his own, he turned the sink off and went back out to the gym. And she was like, well, he's never left the sink before. That's like his thing. If he could get to it, he would do it. And I was like, well, his sensory need was met. We let him do what he needed to do. His need was met, and now he could move on. And that's all he needed, was the ability to do what he needed to do to move on. But if we tell them no and we make it this forbidden thing, they're going to want it more and never be able to move on from it because you become a little focused on it. Obviously, that was water play, and that's a little less dangerous if the comfort zone activity is something like hitting or eloping. We do need to, there are times where we do need to say, no, this can't be what we do right now. But we look at the sensory profile and we find a different way to meet that need. So the last thing I'm going to say about it is that comfort zones are something we can use. They're not something to be shamed or told no to most of the time. And we can use them to engage the child. We can start engagement within that comfort zone. Often it's with sensory motor play. Turn that play into games, add language, then add imagination, and then we're establishing simple relationships that lead to more complex relationships. We can take these very basic units of, well, the child is tuning me out, to actually really meet them at the most basic level and build that relationship in a truly foundational and developmental way. This is kind of step one of building that relationship and learning their engagement style. And that's why comfort zones are a really important part of every child's profile and something really exciting to know about. So I just wanted to, just in the nick of time, we have like 5 more minutes. If anyone has questions or specific things they want to bring up or ask about, that was a whirlwind. So please let me know if you have any questions. I'm like, whew, the floor is yours.
Aileen, that was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And it was wonderful. Really jam-packed with lots of really, really great information. I'm going to stop the recording just to allow people to turn the cameras on and maybe talk with you some more. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you soon again.